For a simple animation, to learn how to use animation in Blender, we're going to use a paper airplane and make it fly across a room. So after having a paper airplane modeled, we are going to scale it down a little bit, depending on how big it is already. But our room, we're going to make a plane here, and the room's going to be about the size of the grid. So I'm going to just hit S and scale this down a bit. And then I'm going to add a plane and scale it up a little bigger than the grid. And then I'm going to go to a top view 7, in orthographic view 5. I'm going to hit G on the keyboard and bring my paper airplane out to here. And that's where I'm going to start my animation from. Actually, I'm going to bring it up a little bit also, up in the air. It's going to fly across the room, curve a little bit, and land on the plane on the other side. So, animations in Blender. We have the timeline down here that's always there. And if I click and drag, I can drag the timeline bar across the timeline. And each number here represents a frame. And so frames in animation, by default it's 24 frames per second. That's standard film frame rate. And so when I play, if I push play or create an animation, if I have 24 frames, that will make up 1 second of animation. So I'm going to use for this animation about 2 seconds, and right now I have about 250 frames. I only need about 50. So I'm going to drag the end frame, to back down to 50, or just click on it and type 50 and hit enter. And so now as I scrub through here, it goes from 1 to 50. In fact, it goes off negative. Actually, it starts at 0 and goes off as far as I want. So I'm going to put it to 1, and I can see where it's at right here or right down here. Right here's where I'm at. So I'm going to stick it on frame 1. I'm going to go back to my top view. And to set a keyframe, so we have frames. Each position of the cursor is a frame, but then we create keyframes for our animation, and those are the key positions of our animation and key movements. And then the computer interpolates the rest of the frames and creates movement, or the appearance of movement, for our object. So if I hit E on the keyboard, I on the keyboard, then it brings up this keyframing menu, and I can keyframe a location, rotation, and a scale of an object. Or I could do all three at once, location, rotation, scale. And this is what we use a lot for basic animations. So I'm going to click location, rotation, scale, and it turns orange, and then there's a little yellow line on my timeline. So that's the keyframe. But if there's only one, it stays in that position forever. So I'm going to drag this bar to frame 50, or just type it in right here. And then once I have the bar there, I'm going to move my object, hit G on the keyboard, and I'm going to bring it out down here to the other corner. And then I'm going to keyframe that. So I on the keyboard, and location, rotation, scale. And now as I click and drag, scrub through these, it moves from one location to the other. So I have my airplane movement. Now, before I forget, I'm going to go to a front view. I'm going to pull this down to the ground, and I'm going to re-keyframe it. I, location, rotation, scale. That way it goes from up in the air down to the ground, to the plane. And now in between I'm going to start to add some keyframes. So I'll go back to a top view, and I'm going to drag it about this far, and I'm going to just put this in some different places. And each time I'm going to hit I, but if I don't want that menu to come up every time. If I'm going to just hit the location rotation scale every time, I'm going to stick it right here where these keys are. And here's that same menu. Right here I'm going to select location rotation scale. And every time I hit I, it just automatically sets a keyframe there. And right up here it says added 9 keyframes. And so that way I don't have to select it every time. I just hit the I on the keyboard. Okay, I put it there. I'm going to go forward a little further. I'm going to put one there. I. Come out here a little ways. Hit G and move it slightly. Hit I. Okay, so now it's moving a little bit. I'm kind of creating the curve that I want my airplane. It's going to go left and then back right and then straighten out again. So now it makes some nice movement, and it's still going in the downward direction because I set the 2 keyframes on the outside that way. So that's helpful. Now I'm going to make it turn a little bit, so I'm going to use some rotation. So I'm going to start out facing a little bit left. I'm going to re-keyframe it, I, and then it's going to go left and then straighten out a little bit. Okay, and then as I come, well, right here I'm going to rotate it so it's fully going to the right. Kind of gradually turns to the right, and then it goes right. And this is gradually then turning straight again, and I don't want it to do that. It's kind of skidding in a way. And so I come close to this position, and I rotate it the same, keyframe it same as the previous keyframe, so it's traveling the same direction that whole way, or close to it. And then it quickly turns, and maybe I don't want it to turn that quickly. If I want to move this or get rid of this, let's see, Alt-I will get rid of a keyframe. Delete a keyframe. I'm going to move it back a little bit. Rotate it again, hit I, so now it curves a little slower. In fact, I'm going to rotate this just a little bit more that way or less, and then it straightens out. Okay, so I've got some nice curves in there, simple curves. Goes left, then right, and then straightens out again. Now, the last thing I want to do is add, I'm going to kind of come to the back of the airplane and add some tilts to it. So I'm going to start, let's see, where am I going to go? I'm going to go to the first keyframe, and then I'm going to get behind the airplane. If I have the airplane selected, I hit the period key on the keypad, period or delete, and it zooms in on it. And then I can kind of just get a view in the back of it. And I'm going to rotate it just slightly to the left. I can also, if it's hard to get a direct back view or a view that's right behind it, you can open up this menu, and I'm just changing this Y rotation right here. And so that it doesn't matter what view I'm on. That's kind of nice because I can just click right there and drag, and it tilts it also. So get a nice rotation there, and I reset the keyframe. It just replaces what I had and adds some tilt to it. And then I'll go to the next one, and then it starts to tilt right. In fact, I'll go right in the middle of these three, and I'll tilt it right. And this one's going to tilt pretty hard. I'll reset the keyframe. And these will probably have a little tilt as well. It's not as much as the middle one. So now I'm using my keyframes and just making sure the positions are exactly where I want them. In fact, this one's probably a little less tilt, and this one a little bit more, because then it's really turning hard. Okay, And then when I get out to here, it's going to tilt back left. It's going to start tilting right there. In fact, I'm going to add another one right here, so then it will start tilting on the next frame. Keyframe at I. Come in here. It's going to be tilting pretty hard by this time. And then it's going to straighten out. It's going to land. And I could even make it fall over in a few keyframes. And then I'd have to extend this out to where it is. And there it is. It tilts left. Let's see here. Take it out of orthographic view so I can see it a little better. Tilts left, tilts right, tilts left, and lands, and then falls over. Now my camera view, I'm going to get in my camera view 0 on the keypad. And I'm going to lock camera to view, and that way I can place the camera in a nice angle, maybe behind the airplane. And then I also want it to see it land as well. So I want to see it go left, turn right, come back and land. And there's a simple animation.